Today, we become legends.
Alright, so the mid-season patch coming up pretty soon is changing a lot of items. There's like a big hunter item overhaul, decent amount of solo lane item changes, especially with the shields. A lot of assassin items are being overhauled as well, so there's an absolute ton of changes. So today I'm going to be doing a tier list ranking all of the new or changed items, just based on like how powerful they'll be after the mid-season patch, or how powerful I think they'll be. I'll be off on some of them, I'm sure, but some of them I've got a pretty good idea. Yeah, I've got all of the items down here that I think were significantly changed in the patch. There was a couple of items that like were changed very minorly, or stuff like Assassin's Blessing that I'm not going to rank, like Warrior Tabby, things like that. These are all the items that I think were majorly changed, and we're going to rank them. So, first up is Atalanta's Bow. This is either an S or an S plus item. This is going to be really strong after the patch if they don't change it. Probably S plus. So for those that don't know, this is sort of like the new... It sort of takes the old Executioner slot. It has 20% pen, and it now has like the passive that's sort of like a mini Hasten Fatalis, where like you can go zooming around, where you have like really low strafing and backpedal movement penalties and things like that, and you can go really fast while basic attacking. And it seems to be like you would go like stacking item boots into Atalantas now instead of into Executioner, and it's going to be a really powerful item in that slot, making hunters really good. I think it's going to be one of the best hunter items in the game after the patch. So yeah, S+. Mazurka Shield is also really good. I don't think it's S+, but I think it's probably going to be good. I've seen a lot of hunter players building this as like either a rush item or a third item. So kind of once again in that spot where Executioner used to be, like you would go stacking item boots, Berserkers. But I think even you could potentially skip the stacking item and just rush into a Berserker's build for like an early aggression. Like the passive that Berserkers has now is like a rage thing where you get an extra 20% attack speed and an extra 20 power when you drop below, I think it's 40% health. So the item comes with already like 40 power, 20% attack speed, 10% pen, sorry, and 30 protections. But then once you go Berserk, you get an extra 20 power and 20% attack speed. So you're up at 60 power and 40% attack speed once you're using that Berserk passive, which is super strong. And also the early 30 protections in duo lane is going to be really strong for like boxing the enemy hunter, because defense is super efficient early on. Like even a small amount of defense can drastically reduce the amount of damage you're taking. So having an item that's sort of hybrid, where it gives you like really good aggressive stats like the power and the attack speed and the pen, but then also a bit of defense, is going to be really good for like boxing and trading. I think Mazurka Shield is going to be the go-to like super heavy boxing item in duo lane. But then also I think it could see some success on auto attack warriors in solo lane, and maybe even some auto attack junglers. Like in solo, this isn't probably a rush item anymore, but maybe if you go like your boots, your defense, this is like a third item on stuff like Bellona, Erlang Shen, maybe Osiris, maybe Kukulkan or Amaterasu potentially. And then maybe in jungle you go this on like Baka or Arachne maybe. But honestly, I think it's going to see the most play in ADC and like a little bit of play on auto attack warriors. I think in jungle it's going to be sort of a meme pick, but I think as like a third item in ADC or in solo, it's going to be really strong. So yeah, S tier definitely. Book of Thoth, I mean, it's okay. It's either A or B. It's getting buffed by like 150 gold, so it's going to be in basically the same spot it was before. It's just a tiny bit cheaper, comes online a little bit faster. But you still have the problem where, I'm going to put it in B, I think, because you still have the problem where all these other items that mages are buying, like Rushing Pen, a lot of these items are here actually, rushing the pen items is probably still going to be better in terms of like an early power spike, but it also means that Book of Thoth is there as a potential, because a lot of the early items that mages were rushing, like the early pen items, are getting nerfed. A lot of them are getting 5 pen taken off, so maybe Book of Thoth could be good. I might put it in A. It's not the worst, and after the changes it could be a lot better, I think. So Divine Ruin is one of those that are getting changed. It's still going to be good. It's still going to be a very good item, don't get me wrong. Like, it's being nerfed from 15 pen down to 10, but it's also getting a little bit of a power buff, so it's going to be less damage overall early game, but it's still going to be probably the go-to rush against any kind of, like, self-sustain on the enemy team, or especially if they have a healer, you're definitely still going to be rushing Divine Ruin, I think, so it doesn't really change too much for the item. It's just a little bit less of a valid early rush option in my opinion, so I'll probably put it in A tier. Gladiator Shield's really bad. It's either B or C. I don't want to judge it too hard because we haven't seen how it actually performs yet. It wasn't a minor change, this was like a full rework to the item, where it's now like a full tier 3, and essentially its passive is enemies that are below 50% health take bonus damage from your abilities, so it still might be like passable on ability spamming warriors like King Arthur and Kukulkan and maybe Tyr. but I don't think it's going to be that good. It's definitely not going to be a go-to, and I think it competes too hard with Void Shield. Like, almost always you're going to prefer Void Shield to this item, except for maybe in specific cases, like I said, with King Arthur and Cuchulainn and things like that can proc the passive repeatedly. But the damage isn't that good. It's 15 plus 2 per level, so in the laning phase, maybe you're like level 10 or something, you're going to be doing 35 extra damage on your abilities, which is basically the equivalent of the Warrior's Blessing proc, but it's not true damage. And for a full item that stats are kind of mediocre if you exclude the passive, like, Void Shield stats are probably better. It just doesn't seem that good. Heartseeker, can I make an SSSSSS tier for this item, please? It was already probably the best item in the game, definitely the best assassin item in the game, and they buffed it for some reason. Adding 10% pen instead of 10 flat pen, which is kind of like a side grade. Is that? It's not strictly an upgrade, it's sort of better late game but worse early game, but really you were building Heartseeker late game anyway, so I kind of take that as a bit of a buff. And then they also reduced the cost by 200 gold for no reason at all. So yeah, if there was an SS tier, this will be in it, but I'll put it in S+ for now. Hide of the Nemean Lion, I'm not actually sure where to put this. I've got mixed opinions on this. They buffed the block stacks so that you can now have 2 max block stacks. So you can go into a fight with 2 block stacks ready, which is kind of good. It's not that good against like hunters that are attacking super fast and moving around all the time. It's really good against Mercury. Like, you're definitely buying this against like a Mercury with an ADC or like any heavy auto attack jungler against an ADC, but it doesn't seem like it's essential against hunters. Like before, it would just be really good because they couldn't really attack you, especially if you combined it with thorns, but 2 block stacks doesn't really do all that much for you, honestly. I'm kind of mixed on this. I'm going to put it in B because it doesn't really seem that good, but I think it could be potentially decent. Mail of Renewal got buffed. It's not a good item anyway. It's way too easily countered by anti-heal. I might even put it in C, actually. There's so much anti-heal in the meta right now because healers are strong and the anti-heal items themselves are very good. Mail of Renewal just doesn't see enough play. Like, even if you get the heal off in team fights, which it can be good, you're likely going to be anti-heal because like Divine Ruin and Brawlers apply for like 10 seconds. So oftentimes you're going to get a massively reduced return on that heal and it's just not that good. Poison Star got kind of side graded. They took off some attack speed but added some power. It's still going to be a really good item for Hunter builds, I think. Hunter builds are shifting around a lot, which is why I'm not so sure about where this is going to be, but it's Poison Star. It's always been a really good item. The passive is super strong. The stats on it are pretty good for the cost. I think it's still going to be like a go-to in Hunter crit builds. Rage, once again, still an insanely good item. They increased the cost by like 100 or something, but it's still like 2400 gold for something like 45% crit chance or something dumb like that. It's still a go-to for every Hunter crit build, and Hunter crit builds seeming like they're going to be very strong, so Rage is going to be good. Haste Ring is busted. I'm going to go with S+ for this one. This is like my kind of flavor pick from these, I guess, that not necessarily everyone is saying this item's going to be really strong, but I think it's going to be super good. Like, the sheer amount of stats this thing gives now is kind of like, what was it, Blackthorn Hammer? Like, Blackthorn was pretty good, and they kept buffing it because no one was buying it, and it ended up with, like, 450 health or something stupid. This is kind of a similar case where, like, no one's really buying Haste Ring, mostly because, magical ADCs aren't that good, and they keep buffing it and buffing it and buffing it, and now it has 80 power, 30% attack speed, 20% lifesteal, and a passive that steals 15% of the enemy's power and gives it to you. So it's basically like a Nem passive, plus 80 power, 30% attack speed, 20% lifesteal for 2500 gold. Like, this item should cost 3k or something. This should be like an endgame item for mage ADCs, kind of like Heartseeker is an endgame item for assassins, but it's very cheap, so I think this is definitely like it's not a rush, maybe this is like after Bancrofts or something, you go this. But this is going to make magical ADC super strong regardless of the meta. Like, I think you're going to be seeing magical ADCs a lot more now, mostly because this item is busted as hell. Serrated Edge. So this is going to be a very niche item. I think it's going to be pretty good on the characters that can use it well, but it's kind of awkward to use and only a few characters can really use it that well, so I think I'll go with B tier. Like, it's obviously going to be good on Arachne because you web someone, you 1 and then you 2, and then you're getting the full benefit from this passive, which is if all 3 of your non-ultimate abilities are on cooldown, you get extra basic attack power and I think it's attack speed? Oh, it's lifesteal. You get extra basic attack power and lifesteal, so once you do have that passive activated, this is really efficient for the cost in terms of stats, but if you can't consistently activate that passive in a team fight, it's not going to be that good, so I'm mostly seeing this on Arachne and maybe Mercury. Because the lifesteal and percent pen are kind of nice for Mercury, and then you can activate the passive fairly easy. Like if you ult into a fight, dash someone, pop your 2, and or like dash someone and then 1 as they come down, pop your 2, and then run at them. You're gonna get that extra basic attack power, and it could be really good. So it's gonna be a very niche item, but I think on the gods that it can work on, it's gonna be pretty strong. This is Shadow Steel Shuriken. It gives 40% anti-heal whenever you crit. I want to put this in C. Because why do you need this? Like, Hunter builds generally want to just go for incredibly high DPS, and don't get me wrong, Hunter crit builds are going to be strong. That's not the reason this is in C tier. The reason this is down here is because you don't need to build this, really. For starters, Toxic Blade is more consistent and also better stats. So you may even want Toxic Blade over this in a crit build, which is why it's so low. Generally, just why do you need this? Like, you have Divine Ruin and Brawlers that are insanely strong. Like, they already provide really good stats for the cost, whereas this provides terrible stats for the cost. Let me find this real quick on the patch notes. Yeah, this thing is 2,500 gold and gives 20 power, 10% attack speed, and 20% crit. It's more expensive than Rage and gives absolute trash stats. It's more expensive than... Oh, it's like the same cost as Poison Star and Wind Demon, I think, and gives way worse stats. Way worse. And then, like, does the passive really make up for that when you can just buy, like, Brawlers and Divine, maybe Pestilence or Contagion, even an Ankh if you want to? Like, there's just enough anti-heal in the game that you don't need to hamper your ADC's damage so much by buying this. I don't think it's going to be very good. Silver Branch. This is kind of another one like Haysate Ring where no one buys this and they keep buffing it and eventually it's going to be really good, but I don't think it's quite at that point yet. I think I'll leave it in A tier for now just because I'm not entirely sure where this is going to be. It's a very hard item to theorycraft around, but the base stats on here are insane. Like, I think it has 35 or 40% attack speed or something dumb, which is a lot, and then you get 2 power from the passive stacks instead of 1.5, but I don't think it's going to be insanely good. I think there's better things you can go for in a crit build. Like, maybe it works on Apollo, Artemis kind of gods that have really insane steroids. But in general, like, you have better items to fit into your Hunter build. Like, it sort of has 6 slot syndrome where it's not a bad item, but it's not better than other things you could go for. Like, you need your stacking item, you need your boost. Atalanta's is going to be core, in my opinion. And then, like, you'll be going for, like, Rage, maybe double, like, Poison Star, Wind Demon, crit builds. I just don't think you have enough room for this item in your build, really. Soul Eater, so... For me, I want to put Soul Eater in S, because I think it's going to be good. But it's just never good. That's the problem. I always think Soul Eater's going to be good, and it never is. So I'm going to put it in A for now. I think it's going to be the go-to on a lot of Glad Shield warriors that obviously can't buy Glad Shield anymore because it got changed. Like King Arthur, Sun Wukong, maybe Kukulkan builds this. Like, a lot of those gods that don't have built-in sustain that relied on Glad Shield will probably go this now. Like, having the ability lifesteal on minion waves is really good, because you can heal up passively without having to fight the enemy gods. Like, it's really good for proxying. Like, if you're going to go proxy before on, like, King Arthur or Kukulkan, any of those gods that don't have built-in sustain, you take a lot of damage from the wave because you're not fighting the enemy god, so your Glad Shield isn't being useful, but it makes proxying a lot easier with Soul Eater. You can also lifesteal off, like, the enemy back camps if you go for a rotation after you proxy. And yeah, I think this is definitely a solo lane item. It might see, like, niche play on some junglers and some ADCs, potentially. But I think this is mostly an item for solo laners that want sustain that used to use Glad Shield. I think that's pretty much its niche. Spear of Deso probably comes down to A tier now. They nerfed 5 pen off of it, which is understandable. All these mage items that had, like, 15 pen early on were just making mages do so much early damage when you rush them. So yeah, I think Deso comes down a little bit. And speaking of, Spear of the Magus is going to be insane. I don't know whether to put this in S or S+, but it's going to be really good. I think I'm just going to go out there and put it in S+, because this item is like 2,400. Let me find the exact cost on the patch notes here. This item is 2,450 gold and has 110 power and 10 pen, which is already insanely good for the cost. I think that's the same stats or very similar to what Spear of Deso has, but Deso is more expensive. Like, 2,450 gold is very cheap. You can rush this after your boots pretty easily. And then you also have the passive that is basically sort of like old Shaman's Ring passive, but you don't have to stack it. Enemies take 7.5% increased damage from all sources for 10 seconds when hit by your abilities, so any mages that like to sort of combo their abilities, like Scylla, you know, you won them, your 2 is just doing 7.5% more damage. And it's also from all sources, so if you're fighting like with your jungler, or even with your support, like around a mid lane skirmish, you're going to be doing increased damage from your entire team. I think this is going to be the go-to rush item now. Like, a lot of people are rushing Deso or Divine against healing. You're going to be rushing this now, I think. Unless, like, stacking items become really good, but I don't think they're going to be good enough to outclass, like, the insane cost efficiency of Spear of the Magus. 2450 gold for the stats it gives are just really good. This is definitely going to be the go-to, like, mid lane rush item now, I think. And you can build it on anyone. Like, old Spear of the Magus was kind of situational, where you could only build it on certain gods. This is just an auto build on most mages now, I think. Stone of Gaia? It's okay. It's once again kind of like Mail of Renewal. It's countered by anti-heal, but it's less focused on that as Mail of Renewal is. I don't know, it's still kind of situational. I might put it in B. Like, the regen is really good now. I think it got bumped up to like 0.5% of your health per second. So, like, if you disengage from a team fight for like 20 seconds or something, you're healing 10% of your health. Plus, you have that passive for like knockups. I don't know, this item is kind of almost in the realm of like Silver Branch and Haysate Ring, where people don't buy it even though it's decent, and it's going to continue to get buffed until it's probably going to be good. I might put it in A, actually. I think it's got potential, honestly. Maybe not right now, but if they buff it again, I think it could definitely be like a go-to item for solo laners and maybe supports. So Executioner is finally not the best hunter item in the game. They nerfed it pretty heavily. Like, they did cost reduce it, so it's cheaper to build, but you're not building this in third slot anymore. I think Atalanta's Bow, like I said, kind of replaces it in that third slot, and maybe even Mazurka Shield. I think Executioner now is more of like, if you really want to shred tanks late game, you might go Executioner on top of like your standard percent pen items. Because like Atalanta's gives percent pen, Wind Demon also gives percent pen, we'll get to that in a second. Berserker Shield gives percent pen, Silver Branch gives percent pen. Wait a minute, I don't have Fail Not here. Let me add Fail Not real quick. Alright, there we go. Sorry about that. I forgot to add Fail Not for some reason. But yeah, like I was saying, Fail Not also has percent pen. So like you have a lot of these percent pen items for hunters that you kind of just... The cap is 40%, so you probably just build up to like... You build Atalantas for 20% and then 2 other 10% pen items for hunters. And then that's kind of your pen already sorted. And I think you only really need Executioner if you're like really trying to kill tanky teams, because Titan's Bane's not a hunter item anymore. It's definitely not a hunter item anymore. So I think if you really do need to shred tanks, like before you were going Executioner, Titan's Bane, instead now you just go like a bunch of percent pen and then Executioner like near the end of your build if you really want to shred tanks. But it's not going to be a go-to anymore. I think the other percent pen items like Atalantas and Silver Branch and Fail Not and stuff like that are just going to be way more efficient than Executioner. I don't think it's a go-to anymore. For some reason it's reset the ones that were in C tier, which I think was just those two. Onto the Sledge. This item's busted as hell, dude. It gives just such efficient stats. Like, the reason Masamune wasn't really built too much on warriors is because it was too damage focused, and oftentimes you couldn't sacrifice so much tankiness to be able to buy Masamune. But the passive was really good. And Sledge is now 2300 gold, 40 power, 300 health, 150 mana, 20% CCR. The base stats alone are probably worth the cost. And then the passive also gives you 10 magical and physical protections for each enemy around you, stacking up to 3 times for 30 of each prots. So if you're in a fight with 3 people around you and you're getting 30 of each prots, this is probably the most efficient defense item in the entire game. Like 2300 gold for the stats that this thing gives is crazy. This is like, I feel like this is you go defense, boots, and then maybe a Sledge in solo, or you go like defense, boots, 1 more defense item, then Sledge. And it's just going to be crazy. Like when you start to rotate out of lane, having a Sledge is just going to be crazy. Like 300 health and 40 power for 2300 gold is already really good. And then you also have like a bit of extra mana, which is nice, and then CCR is really good as well. Yeah, I think this is going to be a really busted item on solo laners, and maybe even on like aggressive warrior supports you could buy this as well. Like, sometimes aggressive warrior supports will go like Boots, Thebes, Blackthorn. Maybe you go Boots, Thebes, Sledge now instead. And I don't think it's really going to see too much play on junglers, unless maybe like warrior junglers want it. It's going to be mostly a solo lane item, but it's going to be really strong over there, I think. Titan's Bane is just fine. It kind of got side graded. It's like, it just does different things now, but kind of very similar. It's obviously, like I said, not a hunter item anymore. Hunters aren't building this, except maybe like an Ula or Chiron Medusa, like fully ability-based build. Like maybe mid-lane hunters want this. But for the most part, this is just going to be an assassin item now. And maybe warriors, like maybe if you're a warrior and you want a little bit of extra oomph on like your first ability, after combat. Like, this now provides 20% pen and another 20% pen on your first ability, which can bypass the 40% cap. So if you really want a bit of extra damage, maybe you go this on warriors, but it's really just the go-to tank shred item on assassins now. Like, assassins can get up to 40% and then have that extra 20% on their first ability. Combined with Heartseeker, you can kind of shred tanks with that. But yeah, it's mostly for ability-based assassins now, and maybe a few ability-based warrior solo laners that might want this as like a last item. So it should still be decent, but it's not going to be anything insane. Tyrannical Plate Helm. I said at the start of the season this item was going to be good, and it turned out to not be that great. They're buffing it again. I think I'm going to put it in S because the meta's going to shift away from warriors now that like Glad Shield and Berserker Shield are gone. All the high-pressure warriors that were abusing those shields are going to be less powerful. And I think there's going to be more space for mages and guardians that use this item well, like Hades, Baron, RTO, any like aggressive guardian that uses this item well. I think it could potentially be really good in solo as like a rush on aggressive guardians and mages. I'm going to once again throw my pride out there and say this item's going to be good. If it's not good again, then whatever. But I think it's going to be pretty good. I have high hopes for this item, especially with how the meta's changing. Warlock Staff is decent. I think it's probably on the level of Book of Thoth. They changed it so that you get more of the power up front and less of the power from the stacks. So it's 5 more power overall on the item, but you get 20 more of it like immediately up front as soon as you buy the item, which is a pretty big change because the main reason you're not buying stacking items right now is because they don't provide enough upfront power compared to like Deso and Divine Rushes and the New Spear of the Magus. Like New Spear of the Magus, when you buy it, is just so much more damage than something like a Warlocks or Book of Thoth, even though like once they're stacked up, they're definitely more efficient for the cost. But it's just like, it's more about your power curve early. You want to have like the early damage from rushing these items, and I'm still not sure if a stacking meta is really going to be a thing. But yeah, Book of Thoth getting a cost reduction and Warlock Stack getting buffed. Baba Yaga is going to be insane, right? Like a double stacking Baba Yaga build with these two could be really good. But in terms of just general use on mages, I really do like Warlocks. I feel like it's really nice to have that extra health as a mage, but it's just whether or not it's going to be fast enough compared to a lot of the other things. Because when you can buy Spear of the Magus and have 110 power, 10 pen, and that passive for 2450, when Warlocks only provides like 85 power up front and not much else in terms of damage stats and costs more, I don't know if you can really justify that. It depends on how the meta shapes up though. If it's a slightly more passive meta in mid where you can farm up a little more and not have to fight as much, maybe the stacking items could be good. It kind of depends on the meta. Wind Demon is still good, probably on a similar level to Poison Star. It now has percent pen, but has a little bit less of the other stats that it used to have. So like in a crit build, like if you're maybe going Atalantas into Wind Demon, that's 30% pen, and you can get something else. Maybe like a Fail Knot, I'll talk about that in a second, but that also has 10% pen. Actually, I'll just rank Fail Knot now as up here. I already thought Fail Knot was one of the better crit items, and I'm not sure why people weren't building it, but it now just has 10% extra pen. They didn't change any other stats or the cost or anything, it just has 10% extra pen. So I think this is going to be a really good item now. Maybe you go like a quad crit build, like if you have Atalantas, Rage, Poison Star, Wind Demon, Fail Knot, or even just Rage, Wind Demon, Fail Knot. That's going to be like full 40% pen, you're going to have a ton of crit, you're going to be allowing your teammates to crit, you're going to be super fast because of Atalantas and Wind Demon. And then like your last item could maybe be like anything you want. So like maybe an Executioner if you want to shred. You can maybe go an extra crit item, like I said. You can maybe go Berserker Shield. Yeah, I think Hunter builds are going to be pretty insane. And these two items are going to be go-tos in crit builds. Like Rage, Wind Demon, and Fail Knot I think are going to now be the core crit build. And then maybe you also go a Poison Star. Or like maybe a Deathbringer or something if you really want to. But yeah, I think these three are going to be now the core for crit builds. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the all the items that were changed in the mid-season patch. Obviously, there's going to be a ton more items that I could have put on here, but I was just ranking the ones that I think have been significantly changed. If I had to order these, I may as well go through and order them real quick. Heartseeker is obviously the best. Sledge is probably third. Atalantas is second for sure. Atalantas is going to be broken. Haysate Ring is really good. Rage is just pretty good as like a crit, and I think that's probably good. Spear of the Magus as the end there. Fail Knot is insane. I don't know why people weren't building it before, and now it's got 10% extra pen. Wind Demon here, maybe? Yeah, I think that's about right. I think Berserker Shield's going to be really strong, especially in ADC. Ranking here, Deso is probably still good. It's just, you're going to be building Spear of the Magus where you were building Deso before, I think. Warlocks is going to be really good. I think Warlocks has potential as long as there's like a slow enough meta. Divine Ruin's kind of the same. It's just like, it's got less pen. You're still going to be building it if you need the anti-heal. I think Soul Eater's going to be very good. Gem is like right on the edge of being B tier, I think. Execution is probably the last in this tier. Actually, no, Silver Branch is the last. Yeah, I think that's about right in terms of ranking in that tier. Nemean is better than that. So is Serrated Edge, I think. Actually, no. No, Serrated Edge is more situational. And then, yeah, those are right. So this is ordered now. So I think Heartseeker is obviously still the best item out of all of these changed ones. But I think Atalanta's Sledge are going to be really good. Like, those are two, like, basically new items. Atalanta's isn't new, but it's been changed so much that it pretty much is new. The crit anti-heal shuriken is trash. This is still kind of bad because anti-heal's so prevalent. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on these down below. What you think is going to be like the new best changed item if you agree with mine. Obviously, Heartseeker isn't really a changed item. They just buffed it. So other than Heartseeker, I think Atalantas and Sledge are going to be the two best. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below and I'll catch you guys later. Have a great day and peace out, you nerds.